I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a different podcast, kind of one that I've always wanted to do, and I feel like you're the perfect man to do it with. And I just wanted to talk to you, to be honest.
Well, let's chat. I love chatting.
So, mate, thanks for doing this. You just sent me a great Joe Rogan clip, and I couldn't agree with it more. And it's funny. I was having this thought driving home at about 9:45 last night from the great city of Newcastle. I got a bit of a theory. Like I got potentially too much going on in my life at the moment. I'm trying to do too many things, and it's kind of all at the start of it. So, when you start anything, it takes a while till you get to where you want to go. But if you don't start and push through that, you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've got some health stuff going on, and I don't care what anyone says, and you'd know this better than anyone. Being an assistant coach in any competition now is basically a full-time job, a very lowly paid full-time job. And my missus got stuff going on, and I got too much work. And then I thought, you know what? Outcomes don't give a fuck how you feel. You know what I mean? Like, I probably can't really deal with it, but if you want to get the outcome, you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think what like being an assistant coach is you're going to have to suck at something because you spend so much time dedicated to helping the team's cause out. But as you said, outcomes don't have feelings, so you just got to keep doing what you're doing and the best of what you can do.
Mate, how are you finding your season? How's morale? It's kind of at the cold part of the year, probably not up where you are, but it is down here. How are you finding it? Because I know you do a bit of driving as well. Is morale high? Is it something that you have to work out? How are you still going?
Mate, as a club collectively, like when you're on top of the table, morale's always good. So for first grade, it's been, we're in rare territory. I think Bond in the last couple of years has always been one of those teams that, fourth or fifth, and now we're front running. So it's a nice position to be in. Personally, it's hard, mate. You and I will share some good stories over this, but like, when you drive long distances, mate, you got demons in your head up and down the road. And when I say demons, you're just dealing with a lot. You're trying to get ready for training. You want to ensure that your session runs well, and then you've got the rest of your life to try and balance out. A bit going on.
Have you been dealing with it away from footy? Like, I know you have a running group in the mornings. Has that been something that you found pretty useful?
Undoubtedly, mate. Oh, look, it's interesting. The last couple of months, we're training for a marathon. We're running a marathon this weekend.
So it's for a purpose. It's not just socially.
A bit of both, mate. Look, the running group has spawned from this will go weird, but on Tuesdays and Thursdays up here at Lennox, there's a group called the Bodie Boys, and it's just 40 to 60 people aged from 16 to 65. We all meet there in the morning, group of men, just exercise from 5:30 to 6:30.
Yeah.
People enjoyed the exercise, the exercise side of things, and then from that has spawned these other groups. So now we've got a running group that goes on Mondays and Fridays, and on Wednesdays and Saturdays they do like breathing and recovery down on the beach as well. So I try and get to that. Like, this time of the year's been batshit crazy. It's just, mate, if you're going to suck at something, my fitness has had to suck because I've got other things going on in my life. So you try and train and do those things to help you calm down. But sadly, the last couple of weeks something's had to give, and that was it.
Well, that's comforting to hear, because that's been certainly the thing that's given the most for me. It's funny you mentioned the benefits of that sort of group. I was talking to Ben Alexander maybe over a year ago when we did a podcast.
Yep.
And he said that the thing he missed most about not playing professional rugby was having that team environment to exercise with your mates. And I feel like that's probably the thing that I miss most as well, is having sort of that mutual, you kind of get it in coaching, but you kind of don't as well. Like having that mutual effort together and trying to get stronger, fitter, faster, better. Is that something that you found as well? Like, has that been very useful to you mentally?
Mate, Without a doubt. And my wife will tell you. So I was in the cops for nearly 20 years, and we left the cops, and then that's when I kind of transitioned into football, I guess, and coaching. But mate, missing the workplace, and then missing the camaraderie of a team and friends around you, like to fall into this group of people. Yeah, it's a huge safety network. Hanging out with like-minded people, just want to exercise, earth yourself in the morning, get about the sun and into the surf. It's a pretty good way to start the day.
Mate, before the season started, I was getting up at 5 and training every morning. And you finish, by 7 o'clock, you've already done something really good, and the world hasn't even woken up yet. And I think as soon as I started going to Newcastle, I found that very difficult, because you're getting back at 10:30 at night, and your brain's, because caffeine gum, you have to have caffeine gum, particularly for that trip home.
Yeah,
your brain's going, and then to get up at like 5 a.m. the next day has just been too difficult. And I think for me, I've really struggled with that, because one of the best things I've ever done for my life is start jiu-jitsu, and I just haven't been able to do it.
It's interesting, Chubby, and I mean, you and I, we've got the same story. Is that you get home? I get home from training at 10 o'clock at night, and your head's processing the session. The bride's asleep on the bed, and you're like, oh, I'll just look at these clips on my phone, and it does your head in, because and then look, it's 11 o'clock. So I'm conscious of my sleep, but by the time I get to sleep, as you said, the ability to get up early in the morning is kind of nullified, because I just want to have a good quality sleep.
You know what I did the other day, which is so stupid? I went and watched, pardon me, I went and watched every single Crusaders line out for the last year.
Yeah.
And I've gone, their line out's going all right. Our maul's going pretty well. But a couple of teams have started to maybe work it out a little bit. They put a lot of extra effort into it.
Yeah.
So coming up with some ideas to show some different pictures or some different trick plays, just something to make the defense go, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And I did that. And I've gone, I know nothing.
Right.
and my brain was just worrying and going, oh, I'm a terrible coach. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing, after watching how creative, innovative, and it's nearly every single game.
Yeah.
No, there's something different that they do, which you go, oh my God, I've never seen that before.
Well, one, I love the fact that you're not the only nerd out there watching lineouts, trying to look for the next edge and see what trends are coming out of super football. But mate, that ability of the lineout to, and again, this is something I love. I just love innovation, because what's the first thing I always tell the boys is that if I throw something that's against the grain to you, the defense have got to go, well, I'm just going to watch and see what happens here. So it's just, I don't know, why is he always talks about find the game within the game. Yeah. So you're just trying to find where are the games within the lineouts, and mate, as you said, the innovation around lineouts. Everyone's just trying to look for that next edge.
Well, what I saw with the Crusaders, in particular with their maul, is they're trying to manipulate space with their setup and look like they're going one way, or so they'll load the back of their lineout up, so hoping that the defense will defend there.
Yeah.
Then they'll put some sort of movement on to draw the defense away from where they want to go, and then they'll go to the spot where the least defense is. But because they know they're going there, they're going to be there first. So you've automatically got an advantage. Yep. And some of the ways that they do that are really creative and really interesting. And I'm going to have a crack at some of it over the next couple of weeks. But I guess that's the beautiful thing about coaching. And I did a really good podcast with Paulie yesterday, maybe 2 days ago.
Yeah, good man.
And he's very self-critical as well, and constantly looking for ways to get better. And I feel like that never stops, Fraser.
Well, but look, it's funny, Chubby. At the end of the day, the evolution of the game, it comes back to us at the forefront at the moment. Like we've got to keep being creative, or we're just stagnant to where we are. Like I actually, last night I was looking at Rugby World Cup videos from 1991, because there's some facets of the game back in the 80s and 90s that are still applicable today. Yeah. And like I watched Canada versus New Zealand, 1991 in France. And if you watch the All Blacks scrum, nearly every scrum, they have a back row move, different every scrum.
Yeah, I like the track you're going on, and it's definitely not used enough these days.
Well, it's just like, but we're digging back into the history of the game to find where we want to go at the moment. And I think for Paulie, yeah, and yourself, like your line out at the Wildfires, yeah, like it's such a high functioning piece for you guys. You know that as the next 4 or 5 weeks encroaches, you're trying to look for that next edge, so that come finals time, that you've got a different picture for the teams to go, well, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking. So obviously the players have to think week to week, and we do as well. But I've kind of got an eye on games coming up and the way they defend and some different stuff that we can show them, which I think is pretty cool. I haven't coached lineouts a lot, and obviously still have a long way to go, but it's a very interesting part of the game, I reckon.
Do you lean back on the playing group, or are they kind of
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We got a couple of really good line-out leaders. Obviously, Rob Pulavea and Morgan Innes. And so what I'll do, they had this system in place when I came in. So rather than change anything, I've just added a little bit and gone, hey, guys, what do you think? And then I get them to drive that. And anything that I want to add or change, I run by them, see what they think.
Just going to take some notes, Chubby.
and if they like it, I go, all right, can we install that? And then what I'll do is I'll be there with them. And if they don't get a detail right, I'll just add onto that.
Yeah.
But from my experience, my very limited experience, I got to add, the line out kind of needs guys on the field to run it. Yeah. So having guys buy in, have some thought, some insight into it has been very, very important.
Yeah.
And particularly because I've never run a line out. I can just go to them with ideas and go, what do you think? And if they don't like it, they tell me and I go, okay, cool. But probably the biggest thing I brought in is the non-negotiable lifting, throwing, jumping standards. So they didn't really have that before. And it's something that Dan McKellar showed me. And once you see it, you go, oh, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And my biggest job is probably holding them accountable for the lifting standards, making sure the gap's right, the spacing.
Yeah. Gap, spacing, full extension.
Footwork, eyes forward, tiptoes, chest to chest, making sure they get good deliveries, releasing on off the top line outs, not releasing on more line outs to maintain that connection. It's funny. It's funny. I was speaking to my dad. He goes, we had one game where we lost quite a few line outs. And he goes, your throwing is just not good. And I looked at the game and going, not the throw. It's not the throw. It's amazing how often you get the spacing on the ground actually determines the throw.
Yep.
Because if you get incorrect spacing, your lifters are going to be late to get to the jumper.
Yep.
And that's when you miss it, or bad calling.
Yeah.
So I'm probably ranting a little bit, but one of the things that I brought in is a emphasis on tempo lineouts. So we do pre-call. They have some idea of where they want to go based on the defense.
Yeah.
Our caller walks in last and he's scanning for tempos. So there should always be a tempo available. Yeah. If a tempo is not available, he goes to the pre-call.
Yeah, good. Yeah, mate. I love that. We had Josh Canham. He's come back from the Rebels to Bond, and last weekend, just talking to him and the detail that Jeff Parling's kind of installed to him, and it's cool listening to Josh's story. Like Josh is this behemoth of a man.
Yeah.
But his history of the game is late. He came into the game late, so he's just learning a lot more about line out detail, and he just gave some things that Jeff Parling kind of looks at the Rebels. It was interesting talking about striding the line out. Like the smaller the steps is, the more steps that the defense get to queue off you. Yeah. So for bigger blokes, like take big steps and we just get across the ground a lot quicker.
Well, the other thing that I've learned from the Brumbies is just say I'm moving to lift you. If I take a step in the opposite direction, that's slowing me down and giving the defense more time to react. So one, the defense is going to get there quicker because I'm a little bit slower, but because I'm slower, the timing of the throw might be off. That could be the difference between winning and losing a line out. Such a small detail. If I'm half a step the wrong way from you.
Yeah.
The spacing's not even. That's
Yeah.
another reason you could lose the line out.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting part of the game. I always got told when I first started coaching, the line out's the hardest area to coach. The line out's hardest area to coach. And I think that's absolutely true. Thankfully, we've got a hooker that is a good thrower, a couple of them. But I could imagine if you had one that wasn't a good thrower, it would be an even harder area to coach.
What do you reckon the trends are then in Sydney? And I'll come back because we can compare. What do you reckon the trends are in the Sydney comp? Say A and B zone. Is it still reverting?
Say that last bit again. Sorry, mate.
Is it still reverting to a more?
In the A zone, a lot. Yeah. So close to the line, a lot. Something that I've noticed with the good attacking teams is they will sort of punch through the seam a lot. So they're trying to win it towards the tail to cut off as many of the forwards as you can, then doing like a bounce out play and just punching straight through the seam, particularly against us. I hope no one listens to this, but it seems to work pretty well. And it definitely works for us when we do it. That's kind of the biggest thing. We've only had one more try scored against us this year.
Yeah.
So there's not been a huge amount of teams like they've tried a couple of times, but then they usually play.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing I've seen. It's pretty direct. There's a couple of teams that'll try and beat us around the corner. That's quite a common tactic. That's kind of the only stuff I really noticed. How about you?
Well, a bit the same. Like what teams will try and take us on at our more. I think the trend in the Brisbane comp is A zone more. It's effective. I think if you look at the highest try scorers in both comps, there's probably two hookers at the top of each try scoring list, and that just signifies that it's still such a potent weapon. I love Matty O'Connor, who's been in my life for a long time, but he says, mate, you still get the same amount of points for mauling a try as you do having a wing across the line. So if you can cross the line 5 times with your maul and only once with your winger, then have a think about that.
I couldn't agree more. The things that I've noticed this year, which I find maybe confusing, is the refs. I feel like the maul's a really hard area to ref, and for the first part of the year, they were only refereeing the attacking side of the maul because there's been a lot of teams shifting and doing all this shit. And I actually like shift mauls. I know it's illegal, but I think if you're smart enough and technical enough to do it, you should get away with it. And they were only refereeing that. So they were disregarding the defensive side of the maul. Yeah. And I know some refs listen to this. I like the refs. They're all good blokes, the ones that I know. But they get told to look at certain things.
Correct.
So, and it's such a hard area of the game that I feel like for a little bit, the maul was almost being refed out of the game from what I could see.
I totally agree. And I know this because I've actually got a Sydney ref in my pocket that actually sends stuff to just for some external opinion. So I clipped some stuff the other week. I don't know. Let's call a spade. So like the back lifter interfering with the receiver of the line out. Like it's such an evident picture when you freeze and say, hey, look, this guy's offside.
Yeah. All the time.
I've got some funny pictures because the referee is actually looking at the maul side on, and the video camera depicts that. So look, I'm not critical of the referees, but it's like, is the reward for the team moving forward, or is there any reward for the defensive team that's trying to swim for the football?
And it seems to me like it just depends on what ref you get on what day. And I get it. Like, to me, if you're good enough, go for it. And a couple of refs have said to me is I don't want to make a call that decides the game based on something that I'm not 100% sure about. And I get that because they don't have TV to make that decision. And, if they get it wrong and you end up losing the final, not making the finals, I can only imagine that wouldn't be a good feeling for them. And what I've heard a couple of guys say is we're just going to let you guys sort it out. And it's hard to coach like that because they're not all the same. Like some of them vary in what they do, and they allow different things for more defense and, more attack. But I kind of like that attitude.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Again, I feel for the referees because it's a pressure environment. And the reality is Shoot Shield, Premier Rugby in Brisbane is that there's full-time jobs on the line for some coaches, and their ability to win football games can be hinged on a decision. That's pressure. Maybe you just got to execute that picture far better than what it looks like.
100%. I also think whoever's running the game probably needs to simplify it for the refs. Like I don't think we should ever take mauls out of the game. I think it's a beautiful part of the game that separates us from league, really. Mauls and scrums, and we got to keep that in.
Yeah.
But just finding a way, and I hate people that ask for fixes without offering solutions, and that's exactly what I'm doing now. But come up with a way to make it easier for them, because we want refs in the game. Fraser.
You do, mate. I get it. It's, I think one of my mentors in my life, Chris Hickey, has always said, you're trying to make a complicated game, try and keep it as simple as possible.
100%.
So there's some confusion. I get it. But at the end of the day, like, as coaches, we just want to execute, give a good picture. So there's no concerns around the referee.
Something that's been fucking us up is when teams vary their maul tactics against us. And I'm probably not going to put this out for a few weeks, so hopefully they don't listen. But when teams vary what they do to us at more time, that messes with us, and it's been quite an effective tactic. And I find it. I think it's against the spirit of rugby. I think it's a weak thing to do. Teams that stand off and don't defend. I probably should do it, but part of me is like, that's just weak.
I like it. I think, Chubby, I just like the psychology around it, because like you said, your team, you practice more Tuesday, Thursday. We're going to go 7-man here or 6-1 here, and we're going to take this 30 or 40 meters. And then all of a sudden, no contest. It frustrates people, but that's the game within the game. So I appreciate your view on it. Would I educate my players? Potentially. Like, if I know I'm playing against Hunter, and you rolled us earlier in the year, like, is it a strategy I would think about? Potentially, but again, mate, hopefully this comes out the week before the grand final, and no one's worried about it.
It's effective. It's an effective strategy. I've got no doubts about that at all. But I think it's against the spirit of the game, being that it should be a direct contest for possession at all times. That's what I don't like about it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, I've got some philosophies around the game. At the end of the day, I'm always looking for you're always looking for the contest.
Yeah.
If you can win that contest, but and again, that's a fair point, mate. Like, we're just having a no contest, and it's taking away a contest.
100%. And I also, we've come up with a way to counteract it, which I think is probably incredibly effective. Hopefully, I shouldn't say that before we do it. Hey, question. I got something I wanted to run by you. We've got the same mentor, the great Matt Williams.
Correct.
Couple of fantastic quotes that he had that really resonate with me.
Yeah,
is rugby is easy, people are hard, and I think that's a great one to dig into. And the other one that he had that stood out to me, which I literally just wrote down in the self-assessment thing that we had to do.
Yeah,
I just wrote that and quote marks Matt Williams. Is most coaches don't lose their jobs because of X's and O's. They lose it because of a breakdown in relationships, which I've seen, and I think that that's incredibly true. And in my mind, that comes back to communication. What do you make of that quote? What's coaching people taught you about humans? What's it taught you about life?
Mate, well, I kind of flip it back to my past career being in the cops. Like, mate, communication was number one. I'll break it down. Is that rugby is easy, people are hard. So I loved being in the cops. It's a public service role. So yeah, you're servicing the people and talking to people and communicating. Mate, the reality is life is hard for a number of people. Like, to get them to on a Tuesday and Thursday night, you're dealing with all the external pressures of their life, but this is their little sanctuary for 2 hours at that time of the week. If you can make that sanctuary for them comfortable and make them play good rugby, well, I've always kind of had the philosophy is that getting onto the rectangle that's the easy part. It's getting them everything that happens off the rectangle to make sure that they're right to roll.
Yeah.
So I'm always conscious of people's lives and what's going on, and I'm genuinely interested. I actually love listening to what problems people have in their lives. I love solving people's problems. I don't have the answers, but I love listening to them and figuring it out. And I guess that second point that you make about the breakdown in relationships, well, that's effectively going to bring anyone stuck, isn't it? Like if you haven't got an ability to communicate face to face, I don't know. I think we're kind of coming out of that post-COVID era where everything was done over Zoom, or there was lack of interaction face to face. And I could send you a text message as an excuse, and you would just cop that, because I got COVID, or I've got a sniffly nose, and we're past that now. Like we need back to face conversations, and being around each other is key to relationships.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes people forget that amateur, semi-professional, professional, whatever you want to call it, should be an escape from your life. And for that, those 2 hours, your problems shouldn't matter. You're doing exercise with some good people. Hopefully you got decent coaches to help make you better. You're working towards a common goal. And I don't know. I haven't been doing this a long time, but I see it in guys, particularly after, it's getting cold, couple of losses, morale starts to go. People go, oh, this is hard. Why the fuck am I doing this? So I don't know. Have you, is that something you've seen? You've been doing it a lot longer than me.
Mate. But look, I started coaching back in 2005, 2006. And my real first venture was up at Inverell. Mate, try coaching Inverell in the middle of June, July, August. Like, mate, it's -3 or 4 at night. You got a couple of guys in your team who are like, we don't train in the cold. You got to learn to adjust to the scenario that's around you. And a few losses. How good's a loss, and then cold weather for morale, and then injuries on top of that. So I know it's a bit of give and take in your planning, and you and I know, like, the head coach will plan something out, and then it just gets readjusted right before training starts because you haven't got numbers, or there's some other environmental issue. Mate, that's just part of the journey.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and particularly I could imagine coaching Inverell when you're super gung ho, and maybe some guys aren't quite as committed as you'd like to be. That would be a challenging one. How do you keep it fun, or how do you get the balance between fun and getting the work done? That's something that I've struggled with a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. I guess and Bubba might say the same. Look, I've kind of always been I'm the glass half full kind of guy. I love having a good time. So maybe for me, I think I've had to readjust myself. Like I'd love to be a head coach, so I've kind of had to pull the fun element back a little bit. But it always underpins. I've always got in my session, like, where's the fun? Where's something that we've got some time to actually embrace a bit of fun. So, I'm conscious that mate, our guys don't get paid, but they're there for the love of it. So I've got to ensure that we've got some buy-in in that regard.
I guess the other thing as well is motivation would be high, one, because you're winning, but two, if you can actually help guys improve, I think no matter what level they're playing at, I think guys appreciate that and they enjoy that. Have you seen that?
100%, mate. Like, I don't know. Well, we've been at similar clubs, right, or similar scenarios where how good's a winning environment?
Yeah.
Or the motivation to win, and then you have those seasons where you're like your 8th or no, your 10th.
I was last year.
There you go. And the year before I was at the Wildfires, we were just hoping to win a few games along the road, and you're just forever looking for that little bit of glory. And you got to learn to celebrate the small wins because they're just so important.
It's funny. This probably shows you how far the Wildfires have come.
Yeah.
We've won games and we're disappointed.
Yeah.
So that's quite an amazing journey in a short period of time, really.
Oh, look, I embrace the success that Hunter's having because not only being part of the organisation a couple of years ago, but there's some good footballers out there, and I just love the fact that Bubba, I think it was in the press not long ago. You know, like, there's not one contracted player at Newcastle at the moment.
Well, we got a couple now, but
yeah.
but none of the local guys have been looked at, and potentially they should be. I think.
Well, mate, riddle me this, right? So you're the best team in the comp, and so there's got to be some success there. Like there's players obviously well and truly above other people. You know, I argue that I think form warrants selection, and at the end of the day, all you can do is put impressive performances on the field, and hopefully someone's watching.
Oh, look, I'm certain that there'll be a couple of guys who get gigs after this year. Like, I look at Izzy Fuka, the young loosehead prop, who was a halfback 3 years ago. He was a halfback 3 years ago, and he is genuinely the best loosehead prop in the shoot shield. He's killing it. Someone should be looking at him. He needs a little bit of physical development, and he's only young. He's 23.
Yeah.
Someone puts a bit of effort into him. He'll be at the very least a professional level prop. He's that good. Clayton France came through the Auckland Blues system. He's someone that people should be looking at, and there are others. But I'm sure that people, hopefully, a couple of Super Rugby coaches are listening to this, and you know.
Well, let's be honest. Let's clarify that is that, and I won't say who, but like high performance managers of franchises do look at the stats, do look at the details. Because I was contacted about particular players from the Brisbane comp after last season, and when you start looking, well, why is he asking me about this person or that person? You look statistically, they're dominant in what their function is. So, as I said, form warrants success, form warrants selection. All you can do is keep having performances week in, week out.
That's right. I think consistency, being a part of a winning team, and I got a little bit of. I don't necessarily buy into the statistics, and I'll tell you why. Because on the weekend we won 8 of our. We won all but one of our lineouts. You know, one of them they just pinched, but we won all of them. And I look at it and go, okay, so we won our lineouts. It makes your lineout winning percentage look great. But 3 of them, we tried to more, got sacked, almost got turned over or a shit launch play. So I don't really count that. Yeah. Then another one, we had a sloppy tap, which we won. The halfback got the ball under pressure, got tackled. So we won the line out, but it was shit attacking ball. Yeah. Does that make sense? So that's my argument against some of the statistics, because I would go, a line out win only counts if you get a good maul off it and then can launch off it, or you get clean ball from the 9 to the 10.
Yeah. Do you do your own stats, or are you reliant on Opta data?
I tried to at the start, but then I'm like, there's too many things to try and do. They do. Opta does do it. Yeah. But like also, if you're looking at scrum percentage, we're coming like 5th, and anyone we've dominated everyone that's played against us. So I made this is. I don't think if administrators are listening, great to have you on board. But like we get data, it's obviously done off-site. Is it accurate? Not exactly accurate. That's why I've got to go back to. I like doing my own stats. But I use it as like a reference point. So we get sent a report every week.
100%, yeah.
And if a guy's missing a couple of tackles, you can kind of point that out and go, look, or. If your ruck speed's slow or you're losing ruck ball, you use it as a guide, but I wouldn't. I know guys that use it as the be all and end all, and they use it to validate what they're doing. And I just don't think it tells the full picture.
I got asked this question the other day, like, if you were to become a head coach, or what are your KPI stats and data? And I was like, well,
winning the fucking comp.
Yeah. Mate, that's the most logical answer. Like, what do you want me to give you an answer now in the middle of the season about your club or this club and our team and where we're going? It's like, look, can I answer that question at the end of this season? Because then I'll know exactly where we stand and what we need to work on. But KPI and data, what about just concentrating on winning? Yeah. And from that stems probably the little mantras or the KPIs that you want. But again, it's funny. I think some people are scared to say they want to win. I don't know what it's like there at Newcastle at the moment, but it's like we're trying to evolve this culture of like, let's fucking win. Like, let's come on, man. Like, let's embrace winning.
I wouldn't have come to this club if I didn't see that they wanted to win. You don't have to win, but you got to want to win.
Yeah.
Because I've been in environments that I don't think wanted to win, and you have no chance of success there. But if you got your leaders in a club that all want to win and are doing what is required to win, I'm a big believer that that's the only chance you have of succeeding.
Let's be honest, it's a pretty fun trip up the M1 when you win. So it's no different leaving Brisbane in a minibus full of young Bond rugby players enjoying the win.
I haven't done a bus trip yet, but mate, one thing, talking about the KPIs, I think there are elements of a game that you probably should focus on that lead you to win, and that might be what the the board member or whoever it was, maybe that's what they want. What have you seen, like in the game in Brisbane, that probably leads to success? Like what should you focus on, do you think?
Well, this is a good topic, mate, because I've been employed as a defense coach for the last couple of years. So I'm going to always turn around and show you data that says, defense wins games.
Yeah.
If you start looking at the scores, and mate, shoot shield's no different. Like the scores is blowing out. It's really just a question of who can score more tries.
Yeah.
So is it your ability to stop tries, or is it your ability to score more tries? And I think the way that scores are going, defenses are getting eroded too quickly. So there's still that element to have your defense working super hard. But mate, at the end of the day, it's just all out attack, isn't it?
How important is the transition from? So I've never coached defense. I try and pay attention whenever I see people doing it because I'm interested in it. But how important is that transition from defense into attack and actually practicing that part of the game? Because I feel like there's teams that spend a huge amount of time focusing on that, and that's where you get a lot of your rewards from your attack. So while it might be an attack try, it's still a defense. It's still come from good defense.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, mate. I title it BBD when the guys get clips, and it's like BBD, and it's like
that's a Pornhub thing, isn't it?
No, I don't have no idea. But it's actually ball back defense.
Right.
If we defend for X amount of phases, and it's BBD. So then there's ball back defense, and then effectively it's BBD equals a try, and that's part of the beauty of Bond's kind of style of play, is that we've got an ability to transition from one to the other really well. But I'm pretty conscious of just BBD, getting the ball back defense.
Yeah. I like it. I'm sure that confused a few other people as well. Mate, I agree with you. I think defense and attack is important. Something we spent a lot of time on this year was our maul. We just looked at the game. Sydney Uni, it's no secrets they've been a juggernaut in the shoot shield, and what have they built their game on? And I think a big part of that is having a strong kicking game, having a really good maul, I almost think maul defense is more important than a good attacking maul, just quietly. I've got nothing to back that up, just what I've seen, my intuition. And I think you have to have a solid scrum to launch from.
Well, your set piece has always got to be rock solid, but it's probably never more important, Chubby, because I think, again, oh man, like this will be going down your lane way, but it's like refereeing scrums is just like, mate, I was a back rower, so I can't tell you about the dark arts, but I've gone to watching Sam Needs, people like yourself, Matt Everard give presentations, and like even at that kind of apex level of coaching, we're encouraging people to scrum straight and strong. And then I don't know, that scrum time, there's penalties being given away. It's just it's a lottery. It's hard.
Right. The great Dan Palmer said to me that scrumming is not a dark arts problem, it's a physics problem. And I'm like, if you think about it, it's all 8 in the same direction at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's how you succeed. So I think I think if you don't have the ability to explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough.
You need to listen to, and I'm dobbing him in here, but he's a good mate of mine. It's Glenn Jackson, who's now with the Driller and refereed, and he tells some funny stories. Like, mate, played 100 games, in Europe, 100 super games, refereed over 100 games, test matches, and he's got some funny anecdotes around, like, here's a bloke that played 10 and 12 for most of his career, international referee, he's like, fuck, man, just fucking get the ball in and get it out. He doesn't want to have issues there. Did he study the mechanics and the physics of the scrum? Of course he did. That's why he was touted as such or regarded as a high level referee. But it's just funny listening to him. And I think I feel for referees, because at the end of the day, it's a physics problem. That's exactly right. So you're just trying to counter the physics. So you give a better picture. But,
I feel like there's a few things that, like, to be honest with you, I look at most of the games and I think the refs, like, very rarely do I have huge issues with how the scrum's been reffed. I think they're doing a good job. I think I like refs that if the scrum's collapsed and the ball's playable, you play it. I think that's just a no-brainer. I think if a team's going forward, they should get the reward for it, no matter what. That sometimes doesn't happen. Simple little things like, I think resets should come back into the game a little bit, because sometimes there's not an easy penalty there, and as much as skinny fast people hate watching scrums, it's still part of rugby. So I think the refs are genuinely, that's been a huge improvement as far as I can see for the refereeing guys. I think it's just because I think that they've spent a lot of time trying to simplify the pictures that they see.
Yeah,
they don't always get that right. Some go your way, some go the other way, but it always comes back to even. I think
that's a good point, Chubby. And mate, it's good that we're on this podcast and talking together, because I tell you one cool moment that happened this year, and it was in that trial game against you guys, and you and I are sitting on the side there, and we're watching that scrum unfold, and like you made some observations on Reece Sheriff on that right shoulder, and then you passed me on a message. I get to go and convey that message back to that player. Like, there's some cool little sub interactions that happen within the game that people may or may not know, but like that little coaching point, like, you don't get that unless you've got some good humans around just trying to help each other out. And around scrum time, I think the more that we can educate and help our front row, mate, the reality is it's the back five, as I read your post this week, is that the more that we can educate and teach people how to scrummage properly from a young age, we shouldn't be having these conversations in a couple of years' time.
Oh, 100%. And one of the really amazing things I've found about doing this podcast, and I think it's just coaching in general, to be honest, is just how generous the guys are with their knowledge and how much they want to share. Like, I did a great podcast with Matt O'Connor, and I think he enjoyed it probably as much, if not more, than I did, because he just wanted to share and he wanted to help. And I've sat in a room with Dan McKellar for 45 minutes going through all the Brumbies lineout stuff. And, he's a Leicester Tigers head coach, a Wallaby Fords coach. Like, to me, that's amazing. So I feel like you have an obligation to pass that on if you have any knowledge.
Oh, it's great. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. We're in a good cohort at the moment, Chubby. As you said, we talked about our level 4 people that we're hanging out with, and it's cool when like-minded people just want to share and make things better.
Yeah.
Is it all the dark arts and smoke and mirrors? Not really. Like, I think Flanagan gave that speech at the beginning of our course where he said that if you go to the 14 rugby league clubs, they're pretty much all training the same. In fact, they all are training the same. It's just the ability to manipulate defenses on the actual given day or come up with a better attack plan. But it's probably the same at clubland. I think a lot of clubs are still doing or trying to train the same way.
I think you're probably right. And I think that also creates an opportunity for someone who wants to think a little differently, because I had this thought with Paulie the other day, and it's something that I've been thinking about, is if you're doing the same as everyone else, or you're only looking at the top team and trying to replicate what they do, they're the results you're going to get. So how do you beat the best if you're doing the same as them? I think you got to look for things to do differently.
What's the quote? If you always did what you always do, you'll always get what you always got. So it's kind of like you got to keep reinventing yourself. Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it?
Well, yeah, great story about Blockbuster. I think I said this. I've probably said this too many times, but Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix very early on for next to nothing, and
Right.
they've gone, no, this will never work. And now there's one Blockbuster left in the world. Same with BlackBerry. BlackBerry had opportunities to do smartphones similar to what Apple have done. Nah, that'll never work. Now BlackBerry don't exist. So if you don't evolve and adapt, you won't be there. And I
You
think
won't be.
something that I think you've got to be willing to make mistakes. And I know we've talked about this offline,
Yeah.
the importance of failure and making mistakes. How do you view that part of it? You seem like someone that's very willing to try things and, learn and fuck up and get better.
Well, I think, mate, at my age, nearly 50, mate, I've made plenty of mistakes, and you're still going to keep making mistakes. And it's really what you learn from it and how you apply your learning. Football wise, I reckon there's still stacks of invention still within the game that's available. Yeah. Do I try things? Yeah, I do, because what's the worst thing? Do we get better from it? No, we didn't. Or did we get better? Yeah, we did. Well, let's keep going down that route. I don't know. I think you're always making mistakes, and it's just you just got to keep learning from it. I think Eddie did a thing with IRAA not long ago, and he talked about messy training. Like, it's cool having. Once I heard him talk about having messy training, it's kind of, oh, well, that's cool, because I didn't achieve everything in that training session, or it felt like shit. But they're actually, I was learning, the players were learning, and we're going to get better from that.
I couldn't agree more. One of my early mentors was a big fan of chaos training. And you could see that the players were like, what the fuck's going on here? Because they're so used to having order and regimented.
Yeah.
And his thing is that rugby is it's a disorganized, or it's organized chaos. And I'm going,
Yeah.
oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So one thing I've noticed is that anytime we install something new, particularly with the forwards, like we might do something new with the maul,
Yeah.
that training session isn't good. And
Yeah.
the players are like, oh, what the fuck's going on? But you have to just remind them, that usually takes 2 weeks to nail, then we'll be good. So accept the little blip, because we're actually getting better.
Better. Yeah.
I found that really interesting.
Mate, I think that's good. At least you've identified the pattern. So it's kind of like install. There's a bit of friction here, but it'll smooth out, and in 2 weeks we're good to go. So I think once you accept that, there's always a little bit of I don't know, troubleshooting when you install something, then it's just play on from there. But again, it's just having the ability to have that growth mind to say, right, I'm going to try something. Is it going to work? I don't know, but I'm going to give it a go.
One thing that I tried that I reckon has worked is doing overload mauls. So Palms told me that he did it, and I'm going, oh, that's a good idea. So what we tried was 10 guys on pads, from 40 meters out.
Yeah.
And they got a maul to score.
Yeah.
And I don't know I know the boys didn't enjoy it, but what I found is it teaches you a lot of the mechanics of the maul that you want without having to say anything.
Yeah.
It just, automatically they've got to lift high, get down and forward. The middle three have to punch, and you've always got to fight back to square. And then if guys fall off the maul because they're going for 40 meters, they've got to re-enter the maul as quickly as possible. Good. Plus it teaches you control, because if you just lose control, you're not going to score. Yeah. And then you're getting maul conditioning as well, because it's fucking hard mauling for 40 meters.
Yeah.
So that was something that I tried that did work. And, we've had a lot of success from that.
Tell me this, did you do the old tram track drills back in the day up at Coffs Harbour? Like, you'd maul for like 50 meters.
Yeah.
And I only raised that because, I was down at a schoolboys thing last Friday, and there was a group of older coaches there, and we're just saying, I'll do the tram track drill. And like some people going, what's that? And then we explained it. And I reckon there'll be coaches going back to train this week going, well, we're going to try this tram track drill. Like, it's conditioning. It's hard. But there's, as you said, the players get the learning. They get the automatic feedback, because they're either making ground pretty quickly, or they're just going nowhere. So solve it amongst yourselves.
Well, and the other thing I thought was accidentally clever. I definitely wasn't doing it on purpose, but it was coaching without having to say anything. And then because we've videotape our sessions, I could go, all right, you know how we've been talking about this, and this, boom, look what it looks like when you do it.
Yeah.
So you can give them that feedback as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, look, mate, again, it's just, I just love all these, like talking to you. It's just you're just learning off other people the whole time. Like, how'd you do that? What are you doing there? Like, we're not giving away the secret sauce as such, but it's just like, oh, yeah, sorry, you actually got to work a little bit hard, and you got to keep at the process.
100%.
Yeah.
I started because as we said at the start, I've had some sort of weird health stuff going on. And I think that's to do with stress and some of the stuff I got going on in my life. So I started journaling, and I highly recommend that to anyone who hasn't done it. It's like a daily check-in with yourself. And it's, and what I find is that I struggle to think through problems sometimes, but when I sit down and write it down, I go, there's a solution there and a good way of thinking about it. And something I wrote down the other day is that if you don't stop, you will eventually make it. And I think that a lot of people forget that to start with, it's hard in anything, business, relationships, life, coaching, anything at the start is hard. But the people that make it aren't any better than you. They just don't stop.
Right. It's like full circle, like that Joe Rogan thing.
Yeah.
Like, fuck negative people. Man, I'm going to go on a rant myself here in a sec. But the reality is there's people out there say, oh, you can't do that. Or what are you doing that for? And it's like, mate, I'm fucking giving this a go. I'm actually balls to the wall, giving this a genuine red hot crack, and get out of my way. And if you want to fucking sit there and throw stones at me or weigh me down, then get out of my way.
It's a reflection of them, I think. And I've found, like, I wanted to do a podcast many years before I did one. And it was always like, oh no, you're a nobody. You know, all the lies that you tell yourself, you're like, oh, why would anyone listen? And then one day I've gone fucking and tried it, and it was popular.
Yeah.
And I think part of my problem is I've been inconsistent, realizing that you're not going to make money. You might not get anywhere for 500 episodes, but if you keep fucking going, you will eventually get there wherever there is.
I think it's testimony to you, Chubby, that you've kept going with it. I mean, the appetite behind the curtain is massive. Like people want to listen to other people's experiences. People want to, oh yeah, what's that guy's story all about? Or what's that person got to say about the game? And like, mate, your persistence to say, hey, I'm going to keep producing people's stories and delve into lives. Like, mate, it's important. I listened to something many years ago when I was in the cops, and it talked about evidence in court and proving things beyond a reasonable doubt. And the reality is, you got to get someone in court to tell their story, and the story's got to be compelling. And I think within sport, there's a lot of compelling stories, and your ability to have a platform to tell people's stories is good, mate. So fuck the haters, keep going.
I appreciate it, mate. I appreciate it. And bit of name dropping here. I was lucky enough to have a coffee with Scott Robinson the morning of the Super Rugby final last year.
Yeah.
And, probably says a lot about who that guy is that he would even do that. But one thing he spoke about was theming and theming a season. And told a bit, wouldn't say what that year was, but the previous year they had, I think the first year they had the Rumble in the Jungle, and then they tied everything into that story for the year.
Yeah.
And just how, and to him, he said he used stories to bring people together. And I think that's such a wonderful way of thinking about it. And I think particularly with this sport, and it's not why I'm doing it, Fraser. Like, I do this for purely selfish reasons. I wanted to talk to you and, spend some time learning from you and, sharing experiences, because we've got some similar experiences. And but I think in this game we don't tell stories well enough, because once you know Jed Holloway's backstory, you want to support him because you know where he's come from.
Yeah.
It's Darren Coleman. You know Darren Coleman's story. You want him to go well, and I think we don't do that well enough as a game.
Oh man, again, like, there's actually some cool things that go on on Stan and behind the paywall. But the reality is, mate, there's some awesome stories out there. Now, we had this conversation during the level 4. But mate, there's some unbelievable stories in the game, and I think the ability for social media now to start conveying stories is good. I think the franchises are turning around and churning out some stories about their players, but that's at that elite level. The sub, the sub elite,
Our level, yeah.
our level club footy. Like, there's some awesome, every week there's an amazing story of someone who's done something unbelievable, and we've got to be better at, as you said, conveying those stories to let others know that this is their pathway.
And sharing the game. I think sharing stuff about lineouts like we've done, scrums. I think educating people on the game can only be a good thing, because like I've heard a lot of people say rugby's too technical, there's too many rules. But the NFL is one of the most popular sports in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
So it's just bullshit.
We love rugby. Like, we actually love the game. Like, and yeah, I go before audiences for work, and there's negative stories of, there's this and there's that, mate. There's actually so many cool stories, like the World Cup. Like, I'm loving the selection of the World Cup squad, and I see Skelton presented to the press last night, and he's got a great story. Like, it's great to welcome him back. And I just think we're on the cusp of real good stuff here within Australia, and we just got to, people like yourself, myself, you just got to keep pushing the good narratives.
100%. Hey, what are we doing this half?
Mate, under 18, New South Wales juniors. We're meeting at Rugby Australia, and you're going to meet 13 of our finest from the state. Looking at some scrums tonight. I think, again, going to a short-term program, it's just getting all the kids onto a same sheet. And I think, you'll talk about the importance of the back five, because I think our front rows are actually are good humans who scrummage well. So it's getting some synergy in behind that. And then, mate, I want some of that secret sauce, the secret wildfire sauce on our maul, please.
Yeah, that's cool. So at Rugby Australia, will there be a scrum machine there? I don't like on the field. They don't have one. That doesn't need to be.
I don't know. I don't know what resources are actually there. I assume there's going to be a scrum machine. Anyway, stay tuned. But
okay, that's fine. We'll find out. What are they competing in the nationals, or is there like a competition for them?
So these kids are going to play in the Australian Schools tournament next week. They're going to play 3 games. We've got our first game against New South Wales Schools 1.
Yeah.
The kids that I'm coaching are from Clubland. Some of them are still at school. Some of them are in the workforce. So
okay, cool.
We've got 23 kids from right across the state, from all walks of life. And you talk about some cool narratives. Like, I got to meet some of them the other night, and just genuine kids who are excited to represent their state and take on Schools 1 next Monday.
Oh, it's an awesome experience. I did that when I was at school, and it's a very special week. And I think it's probably gotten more special. How's the schools program working now? Is there a few different teams, or is it?
So I think it's basically the under 18 level now. So there's still the Gen Blue programs, and the different franchises have their number one under 18s program is doing a rep game. So Queensland and New South Wales are playing each other, and the Brumbies and the Rebels are playing against each other.
Yeah.
Underneath that, then is that schoolboys tournament, and that's kind of where I've bounced into to help out. So there's opportunities for the kids to be picked in the Australian schools team that's going to do a tour. Then there's a Barbarians team that's going to go do an Australian Barbarians team. And then there's still the last chance saloon for kids to make the Gen Blue programs that'll play games in, I think, September, October. So
awesome.
Yeah, the carrot is out for our boys to impress and hopefully begin their rugby journeys into the next stage.
Yeah, mate, it's a good thing. Like I think the people that don't really pay attention, or say you need to do more for the grassroots, such a old fuddy-duddy thing to say, but seems to be stuff happening. I see they do coaching education stuff all the time now. There's junior development programs going through the roof. So I think if, as you know, I guess the bit of a theme for this whole podcast is if you stick at it, we'll eventually get there. I think there's a lot of positivity coming.
100%. And I know you've got a cool journey, Chubby, where you've come from Coffs Harbour and spawned out from there. And I think that that there's a bit of synergy in your story back to kids in the country. Like you said, Jed Holloway, Sammy Craig's come back to Sydney this year, but he's from up this part of the world. Like, there's cool stories of kids from small regional towns within New South Wales that have been picked up on a pathway and they've gone to play the game to their best ability. And that's kind of my passion project at the moment, particularly for the next 2 weeks with these under 18 kids.
Well, buddy, no worries. I look forward to seeing you tonight. I'm very grateful for this conversation, and mate, I enjoyed this. I thought this was really good.
Mate, just a couple of assistant coaches chewing the fat, like you said. I actually reached out to Rusty Earnshaw years ago about having just an assistant coaches forum conversation, and he loved it. He said, look, sometimes we don't consider what goes on with the assistant coaches, and at the end of the day, I'm just part of the puzzle to help our first grade team win or help the club win. But we've all got our own unique stories, and you and I can empathise as that traveling in a car for long distances and podcasts and conversations, and I know just the mental conversations that go within your own head. It's quite the journey,
mate. It'd be inappropriate of me not to ask about any podcast or book recommendations you have, considering that I can sometimes spend 20 hours a week in a car. So have you got anything that you'd recommend?
Some context behind it is I got to spend some time with Craig Fitzgibbon from the Sharks beginning of this year, and Fitzy, for those who don't know, like, he actually still commutes to the Sharks. Like, he still lives down at Wollongong, so he'll commute. He was commuting when he was at the Roosters, and he gave what he does on the way to training, which is all prep stuff, and then on the way home is just about all downloading. So I've actually flipped around. I've gone back to listening to Roy and HG, Bludging on the Blind, their podcast. Yeah. Like, it's just a piss take for 90 minutes, 2 hours of waffle. So I like to try and amuse myself with them. I do love Joe Rogan and some of his interesting guests. I love Wandering Bear. I don't know if you got around that yet, but
no, not yet.
I just try and listen to different things. Mate, when I'm about half an hour from home, though, I just try and switch everything off and just try and really unwind before I get into home. So
I might try that.
Yeah, it's a bit weird breathing, and I don't know. It's just, you get it. It's that last half hour before you get home.
Well, once you get off the freeway, you're like, oh God. Mate, let's finish there. Stay on the line.